Thank you, Stephen. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Al Falashi, and I am with the marketing department with Widen Enterprises, and also an all-city defensive tackle for the 1989 Washington Junior High School football team. I think I'm out of eligibility, but Michael, I think you went to Full Sail, so you might have 4 years of eligibility left, just in case there's any college teams out there. But I am here with Michael Benford, who is the manager of the Creative Services Department with the Atlanta Falcons. And today we want to talk to you, tell you the story of how the Falcons and Michael have transformed how they handle digital media throughout their organization. So the Widen Media Collective is a cloud-based digital asset management system. And by asset, I don't mean financial assets. They're visual digital media assets, branded assets of the company. And you can have some fun with the acronym that is normally used to describe our software. It's called DAM. Go ahead and say it. There we go. It's okay. It's not a swear word today. So what is DAM? DAM is software that aids, and if you look at the life cycle of a creative asset, and you start from its creation all the way until it is retired, we help manage that process all the way through that life cycle. So from creation to upload to management to search to download to publishing to archiving and analyzing the usage of that asset, digital asset management helps to, aid in that process. And for digital assets, for logos, video, audio, creative documents, InDesign documents. Who is Widen? Widen is the creator of the Media Collective. We've been around for 68 years, not your typical software company. Clearly we started before digital was around, but the last 20 years have been focused on our Media Collective software. And we're talking about visual assets here. So the visual assets, like photos and graphics and video, they're extremely important for a professional sports organization to form and forge that emotional bond with their fans. The audience needs that content. They crave that content. Team colors, logos, paraphernalia, snapshots, images of big plays, just the general game fanfare, the fanfare of the game. They constantly reinforce that the love of the person's team. Fan engagement is the obvious usage for visual media, but as you'll see with the Falcons story, you'll see that it has actually grown and spread into other areas of the organizations, like the actual football operations themselves. So teams spend a lot of money acquiring these digital assets. And so it pains us at Widen when we sometimes find out that they're using archaic folder and shared server methods to manage and distribute those assets. So I want you, as I introduce Michael here, I want you to think about your own organization, your own creative assets, your own creative staff, and think about how much time they spend doing non-creative things. And with that, I'd like to introduce Manager of Creative Services with the Atlanta Falcons, Michael Benford.
Hey everyone, as Al mentioned, I'm the Manager of Creative with A&B Sports and Entertainment, which is now the new umbrella company for the Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta United, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I've been with the team for 14 seasons now, and I lead our in-house creative group and a team of about a dozen freelancers and agencies that assist on our creative development as well. Our team is responsible for all the creative development for all 3 properties, as well as a handful of other businesses that fall under our ownership umbrella. So today I really wanted to kind of walk you through a little bit about how implementing a digital asset management system has kind of changed the way that we distribute our assets around the organization. When I started with the team in 2002, I was a one-man creative shop and primarily focused on developing web graphics, video editing, and audio streaming, but it wasn't long before we kind of took on all the creative for print and interactive as well. When we first started, all of our assets were stored in file folders on a shared network drive. And there really wasn't a search method. You just had to know where to look to find the assets. It really wasn't productive, but that's all we had at the time. As the organization continued to grow, we had more and more associates that needed access to these assets. And everyone had access, but they didn't exactly have the awareness of where to find them and how to distribute them. So we'd take a common request. I'd get an email or a phone call from an associate, and they'd say, can you send me some photos of, say, Matt Ryan? I'd then have to kind of interpret that request, go through the files, folders one by one, select a handful of options, and then distribute it out to the client. Usually, more often than not, they were looking for something a little bit more specific, so they'd come back and ask for a handful of other options. At that point, I'd point them to the network drive, let them do the search on their own, but it wasn't long before I got that follow-up phone call saying, this is taking too much time, just send me a few more options and we'll be good with that. And that's just our photo assets. When we're talking about logos, we store everything in EPS format to make sure we maintain the highest quality, but not all of our associates are able to work with EPS files, so we spent a lot of our time doing non-creative things like converting files from EPS to JPEGs or PNGs. You know, when we looked at what we were accomplishing at the end of the day, we found that most of our time was spent on doing these non-creative tasks, so we needed to find a way to clear that bottleneck, and the bottleneck was really that process of leaning on us to search, distribute, and convert file formats. So then we found the Media Collective, and once we implemented this digital asset system, it gave us a cloud-based system that was a central repository of all of our images tagged with descriptive metadata. It allowed everyone inside of our organization, all of our sponsors and partners and all of our freelancers, the ability to sign in and download any asset that they wanted. Even better yet, it would convert to any file format that you needed upon download. So if we go back to that Matt Ryan request, now anyone from wherever they're located can log into the system, do a search for Matt Ryan, and then filter that search based on tags like jersey color, the opponent, the stadium, where the game was played, whether it's an action shot or a candid shot from the sidelines. The fact that the dam is cloud-based enabled us to work from anywhere. Knowing sports is kind of not necessarily a 9-to-5 world, we've got to react when the news breaks, so associates are now able to log in on their mobile devices or from home without having to log in through a VPN system. The other thing that's really nice about the system is we've got insight into all the analytics to be able to see exactly who downloaded what asset and when. That's been huge for us. You know, a perfect example is, Al, how long did it take you to find that image of Matt Ryan against the Packers?
Glad you noticed that it was against the Packers. They are my Packers. I do own one share of stock. And Widen is located in Madison, Wisconsin, which is deep inside of Packer and Brewer country. It took me about 15 seconds. Your library has just shy of 100,000 assets in it, and I was easily able to go in. I captured just a little video of what I did here and typed Matt Ryan into the quick search. I use the filters along the left-hand side, and when it loops around here, you'll see those, and I was able to specifically pick Matt Ryan, and the opponent was the Green Bay Packers, and it narrowed 100,000 assets down into a very manageable 30 or 40 that I could quickly visually look through until I found the one that I liked and had B.J. Raji there. And I was able to download it in the format that I needed. It converted it on the fly. And here's the important part. I never bothered Michael for this.
That was huge. Now, we used to spend about 30 or 40% of our time just helping other associates locate assets, distributing and converting them to different file formats. Now our creative team has more time for ideation and creation, and ultimately that's going to lead to more better creative, more effective creative. When we look at numbers, prior to having the digital asset management system, we didn't have any insight into the numbers. Now that we've got it, we've got insight into the analytics to see how our asset library has grown over the course of 3 years. You can see we've roughly tripled in size in the number of assets. Some of this is because of the expansion of new businesses, bringing on the new soccer team, bringing on the new stadium. But from a scalability standpoint, it's super easy to expand to an infinite amount of assets. Looking at downloads, you can see how the number of assets we've ordered has doubled over the last 3 years to about 20,000 last season. Keep in mind, when I started, I had to distribute all this stuff on my own. It wasn't available for everybody else to grab. Uploading, you can see we're constantly feeding assets into the library. We're up to about 65,000 assets that got uploaded just last year. In comparison, in 2013, just north of 10,000. Now, some of the other things we realized that there were additional benefits that weren't even on our radar initially. It improved our ability to work with the freelancers. They had insight into our entire inventory as opposed to us just sending them a handful of assets. And even strangely enough, our coaching staff now logs in and uses this. They're very big on using visuals in their meetings with players for motivation. So Monday mornings after games, if we don't have these assets up, they're calling and looking. They're in there first thing Monday morning to bring them into their meetings with the guys. When we're looking at the feedback from how the system is used, it typically comes from people that come into the organization from somewhere else. When you sit them down and start walking them through how easy it is to download and distribute the assets, you see their eyes start to get real wide, and you realize that they came from an organization that either didn't have a digital asset management system or it just was lacking in the functionality. Now, in summary, once we've introduced this system, it's fundamentally changed the way that we distribute our assets around the organization. The ROI was absolutely crystal clear for us as it freed up our creative and marketing teams to work on the things that they needed to be working on as opposed to just distributing assets. It gives everybody inventory, visibility into our entire inventory, and ultimately it creates a lot more productive work environment. That's pretty much our story of how we migrated into the digital asset management system and how it's impacted our workflow. If you guys have any questions, be more than happy to take them.
So is it just photos and logos at this time, or do you add other pieces onto this?
We've also got our creative source files. So once a project is completed, we archive it up there. So if we get a lot of times we'll get, hey, we need to reprint that piece. We just need to change out the date and time. If I get that call or someone on my team gets it from home, they're able to get into there. They don't have to go into the office to pull that file, so we're able to respond a lot quicker.
And I'm sure people who can add to the library, you also control the search terms? So
We do. We set up different permissions based on if you're an internal associate, if you're a partner or sponsor. You can set up exactly what assets you want them to see and you don't want them to see, and you can set up approval systems so that they can request a download, and then your administrator will get an email and can review the files that they're trying to download and approve them or deny them.
if you have multiple people uploading to the system, the search, is there like a glossary of like search terms that you upload? Because we have a similar system, definitely not as robust, but our team photographer, you kind of have to think like him.
Yeah.
And gosh, I'm trying to find a certain photo. I'm searching fans. I'm searching tailgating and what.
Yeah, we did build a Google Live doc that has recommended tags for every category that's going up. And each department is pretty much assigned a person within that group that's responsible for uploading their assets.
I can add to that too. So when you create your metadata fields, you can either have open text metadata fields, which can be a disaster for obvious reasons, or you can use vocabulary, what's the word I'm looking for? Control vocabulary metadata fields where as you're uploading, you can only pick from these things. And then that helps aid in that filter search on the left-hand side and stops people from entering, ball, baseball, that kind of stuff.
Is the pricing model based on the size of the assets, like the amount of cloud storage you're using?
There's a number of different pricing variables. Sometimes it's users, sometimes it's the amount of storage. Brenna is one of our advisors. We have a couple of people here, and we'll have a booth up in the sponsorship village. I'm the video guy, so she'll be able to help you with
my next question would be, how do you guys use video? Do you upload video to this system?
We do. We don't use this for video right now. We did explore it, and we're still kind of trying to figure out what the video is going to be. Now that we're getting into that world of 4K, do we want it to be in the cloud or not?
So I can add to that. So the Falcon, we have over 400 customers. Some use different portions of the, and we talked a lot about download here. So one of the aspects, which we were looping through that example, there's a share button. So there's embed codes and links and publishing to other platforms. So the University of Michigan Athletic Department is another sports organization that is a heavy user of our system, and they pretty much use it for video. So their entire recruiting site contains video that is hosted through our system.
How easy is the onboarding process if you have an existing library and you have to manually upload or import all those things, or does it?
That's something that we can work with you. Just about every system has some way of exporting your assets with, we'll call it an Excel sheet of metadata, and then we work on mapping that. You're probably not going to want to keep all of the old metadata because there's probably some bad stuff in there. So we work with you to help clean that up and then import a clean and a metadata structure, and that's going to make more sense for the way that your people are going to search.
When we onboarded, they wrote a script for us that we had some basic metadata associated that we just tagged throughout, Adobe Bridge or something like that, and then it mapped to the categories that we built in the system.
And then you expanded from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that it? All right. Thanks, everyone.